Welcome to AeroFuture Advanced Air Mobility Unveiled. In today's episode, Dan Sloat, the president of the Advanced Air Mobility Institute from Boston, is my guest, and we talk a bit about the Institute's mission and the upcoming Winter Forum. Enjoy the episode. So hello everybody, we are here today at the first video episode of our AeroFuture Advanced Air Mobility Unveiled podcast, and of course I do this in cooperation together with the Advanced Air Mobility Institute in Boston, and this is why Dan Sloat is here today, because he's the founder and the executive director. Hi Dan, how are you today?
Katrin, good to see you.
You're good?
I'm doing well. It's it's a bit snowy here in Boston. I do want to acknowledge Amin, of course, has been fantastic, and he's going to be stepping into the executive director role, kind of handling the day-to-day operations of the institute. I'll continue forward as president of the board of directors, kind of crafting the vision. But yes, Amin is going to be handling a lot of the logistics of the work that we do.
Yeah, he does already. He's amazing. I mean, the last few months in the preparation for the upcoming forum, where we talk about later a little bit more about, that was immense, his work effort. This is just, he's unbreakable, I would say. I don't know when he's sleeping or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fantastic. That's very true. So Dan, let our audience know who you are and why you launched the Advanced Air Mobility Institute.
Certainly. So, for me, I've had a passion for aviation as far back as I can remember. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, which has the nickname of air capital of the world because of the immense amount of aircraft manufacturing that's taken place there. Roughly 300,000 airplanes have been manufactured in Wichita, Kansas. It's well beyond any other city on the planet. And so, I grew up with, it seemed like among my friends' parents, they were either doctors, lawyers, or aerospace engineers. And, for a while there, I thought there were only 3 jobs in the world you could have. And so I did. I had a passion for aviation. I knew that I wanted to be a pilot myself. I was fortunate enough to earn an Air Force ROTC scholarship to go to college. Studied business at Indiana University, and commissioned in 2009. I was offered an opportunity to become a pilot for the U.S. Air Force, but it's a very, very considerable service commitment, at least a minimum of 12 years. And at 19 years of age, when I had that opportunity, I took a long weekend to consider it, but I opted for a path that I'm very proud to have taken as a command and control air battle manager. And so I've been looking forward to this space that we now know as advanced air mobility since 2010. Right. Shortly after earning my wings as a professional aviator, I deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, and my personal role was orchestrating the safe and efficient navigation for all drones across U.S. branches and our coalition allies for the entire eastern half of Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
So, and to put it in more concrete terms, that worked out to be at least 100 drones airborne simultaneously, and a total of about 13,000. So as you can imagine, very, very dynamic environment. And I was able to see firsthand just how powerful these uncrewed aero systems can be. Mm-hmm. And that's really stuck with me, and I'm particularly passionate about advocating for those systems, and now, of course, with eVTOLs, and efforts to make those passenger compliant. I genuinely believe that we can do a lot of good in the world, especially if we can get these kind of tools in the hands of first responders.
Yeah, definitely.
The public safety mission, that's really at the core of why we launched the Advanced Mobility Institute, really to kind of help increase public awareness, but in particular about how these systems can be utilized for life-saving missions. Just to give a few examples, we've seen incredible progress and success with UAS systems equipped with thermal imaging for search and rescue. What has traditionally taken 2, maybe 3 days to try to find a missing hiker, for example.
Right.
These drones are able to do it in a matter of hours. So naturally, the survival rate goes up dramatically. And of course, depending on different payload capacity, we can be reaching more rural, remote communities with critical supplies, especially in the wake of natural disasters. Before we kicked off the episode, we briefly discussed the wildfires in California.
Right.
And as here in the United States, and certainly throughout Europe, land-based transportation is very robust. We can reach an awful lot of places, through street and highway systems. But of course, with wildfires and flooding, in certain places, snowdrift and so forth, very quickly rail lines and roadways are not accessible.
Exactly.
So we're really trying to position the Advanced Mobility Institute to be an independent and trustworthy nonprofit research center, something that people can go to for answers, to better understand, and really feel that kind of assurance, right? In particular, because we're divorced from any kind of profit motive, right? So if we advocate for a particular solution, people can trust that it wasn't because we're trying to line our own pockets.
Yeah, exactly.
That we do sincerely want to see these systems utilized, and especially, I'm certain you can agree with this, Katrin, to the extent that taxpayer dollars will be utilized to invest in the infrastructure and the charging networks and so forth. It really is important that we lead with use cases that are unmistakably for the benefit of society at large.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more to this statement. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when we are talking about that we want to advocate the broader public, this is why I actually started the podcast. We discussed about it because, yeah, everything what we are doing with the forum or when we are visiting some exhibitions or symposia or whatever, some events, right? It's the industry being there. There is not the broad public. So this is why we actually were brainstorming about how we could reach out more to the broader public, and also using wordings or explaining wordings behind all of our abbreviations, because what I realized is when I'm talking to friends or family, they are looking at me because I'm so used to speak in our industry language that all the abbreviation and shortcuts, they are staring at me like, can you please speak in German with us, like using regular words that everybody can understand, right? And that was a kind of a moment I thought, yeah, we should do that via podcast, and also that gives the people the possibility to contact us and to ask questions, and we can pick the questions up and probably invite the right person for an interview then, and exploring this entire whole new era of aviation. I think this is the most important thing, because we could discuss this internal up and down in the industry, right? That the public acceptance is key, the cornerstone actually that we need, because otherwise we fear that we won't fly above cities any soon. Because there are fears, there are beholds, and fair enough, we need to be transparent and talk about those, right?
Absolutely agree, Katrin, and you know, as you mentioned, you know, this real alphabet soup. Um, uh, a lot of times, you know, we'll utilize acronyms, you know, in the hopes of, hey, we're on the same page about, you know, what these various letters mean, and we can get more quickly to the heart of, you know, debating, you know, which use cases to prioritize. But I couldn't agree more. You know, our efforts for the broader societal outreach, it's got to be in language that they can not only understand but really kind of, you know, wrap their head around and start to visualize integrating into their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the most of the people probably think this is just another hype of an industry, and it's about money and there is no real benefit, but except noise in more unsafe areas, because there are so many flying vehicles then above their heads. And these are all concerns, and of course we need to take them serious. But on the other hand, as you just said in the very beginning, the first approach beside air taxis, which will not be here tomorrow either, um, I think when we are talking about UAVs for search and rescue missions, for example, if I look towards the industry right now, this is the first goal of a lot of players to reach out to what you said, to wildfires, earthquake regions, floodings, search and rescue missions in the mountains. If in Romania last year a child just got found with a drone, what you just said with a helicopter, it would have taken much longer to find that child. So, and I think this is the first goal in the first approach of our industry, to have a real benefit for the society. And it's not just these little toys with cameras, where the people for sure are concerned about privacy reasons, but this is not going to be the case with the kind of drones actually we are talking about for professional use cases. And I think this is the first step where we already need to educate the broad public. We are not talking about that there will be hundreds of drones with cameras flying above their head. It's for dedicated reason, for dedicated operations. And air taxis, this is a whole different story. So when we are looking towards the industry and the institute's mission, then what do you think is the biggest benefit of educating the broad public, and what is the biggest challenge?
Two very important questions. I'll start with what I see as the biggest challenge. Of course, our formal mission is to educate and advocate for the broadest public benefit through the aviation ecosystem globally. In terms of challenges, you know, it's always been true that any effective public awareness campaign certainly requires resources. You know, we have to reach people on the mediums that they favor, so you know, one of the things I've found, because of, as you well know, and can attest, you know, the for-profit startup world has loads of challenges. You know, to bring a you know, what starts as simply a vision, you know, into, you know, actual operations, you know, something very tangible, that requires an immense amount of capital. And yet, you know, when you go out and make those pitches, you know, an inherent part of that is, and if we're successful, you're going to get, you know, X amount of cut of the profits, right? that's the kind of key selling point for investors. On the nonprofit startup side, we can shout from a mountaintop and say, we're going to change the world for the better, and we have, by the end of it, we say, and even if we're successful, you will never see your money again.
Yeah, exactly, because it's all used and there, as it says, non-profit, there will be no profit.
Right, right, and so it's a much harder sell because these are pure donations, and the concept being, of course, if you believe in the charitable cause, that's why you're, whether it's a company or an individual, is parting with their hard-earned funds. We've of course worked with a number of very generous organizations, through sponsorship of our various reports and events that we host for that outreach effort. So that continues to be a challenge, of course, and from the outset, we made a clear decision to not move forward with a membership model.
Right.
So we have to go out and kind of prove ourselves every single time. There's not a kind of core membership dues that we can count on for regular programming budget. And the reason there, of course, was because we always had intent to bring together best practices from around the world, and it's even the question of, okay, well, if there was a membership due, what would we set it at? We recognized that even what in the Western world we might consider a very nominal amount of money, of course, could be prohibitively expensive
Right.
for other parts of the world. And so we did. We declined to have a membership model because we also didn't want it to feel like an exclusive club. We want it to be a space that it's a community of opportunities, that people who are genuinely passionate about this and believe in our mission, that they can contribute their unique talents and skills. And in fact, we're very much go out and try to drum up opportunities that we can in fact compensate our volunteers for lending their insights. And so as we're building towards that and kind of position ourselves as a think tank, I'm just immensely grateful to all, everyone involved, who's given freely of their time and efforts, to get this grand experiment off the ground.
So probably this is the point where we should mention that the institute is growing quite a lot. I became the chair of the board of liaisons last summer, and in accordance for preparing the new winter forum, which is at the end of this month. I think we just onboarded 20 more countries in this period of time. So we are now 75 or even more, I would need to count, countries. And this is immense. I mean, this is already an effort to find in each country a person, as you just said, willing to volunteer with their free time and doing some reports and information, what is happening in their country, right? So this is probably the moment we have to say thank you to all the volunteers, especially, and also mentioning here that the companies who are interested in presenting their special project or product or whatever, they can do that via sponsorship for the forum. And probably we should explain why we do that, because this is exactly what you just said. The platforms are having fees. You need to do taxes, You need to pay a lawyer at least somehow, that you're within the regulations, and that's internationally. It's not enough for US or Europe. This is one topic which costs money, and of course, what the aim is, I think, is to visit also as much events as possible, that we are even up to date with what is happening. I know you are traveling a lot on your own pocket. I know that. So, but I think you would be probably happy if here and there would be a sponsor ready to support those kind of activities as well. Or it was so nice when we have been in Abu Dhabi at the Air Expo. We should have a shout out here as well. Thanks for the invitation again. They even prepared a full booth for us, and that was really nice. So this kind of support is really, really helpful, because I think we would probably not have had this event even on our screen. I haven't had that event on my personal screen, to be honest.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Katrin. And big thank you to Mervat from Women in Aviation Middle East chapter, and Didier for his leadership with the air show itself. And yes, we're at 75 countries represented, and that's an enormous undertaking. Finding individuals with a strong working knowledge of this emerging space, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And so there's quite a few folks who are they're excited about the space, and they're willing to give of their time, but we do acknowledge that if we're going to hold someone out as a liaison to their given country, everyday citizens who live there, it's certainly foreseeable that they would reach out to the liaison and ask following questions. And so that can certainly impact our reputation. By no means do we want to just go out and increase the numbers, the head count, just so we look more important. So it's a very careful interview process. But in many ways, the purpose here, of course, they don't need to be an expert in every element of
Oh,
this.
we can't.
I mean, I'm certainly not, right? So if that was the case, I wouldn't qualify as a liaison. But a strong working knowledge of the overall concept and intent, and how these systems will interplay. But by doing this outreach now with 75 countries, and of course we work really hard to make sure that there is geographic diversity. As you've seen plenty, some organizations kind of claim to be global, but then you look and they say, okay, it's like mostly Europe, US, and then maybe Australia, and you're like, well, that's hardly global.
Yeah, that's so true.
So when we're looking at the long-term effect, as these liaisons prepare their every 6 months, right? As we should say that it's a semi-annual forum, so plenty of opportunities to get involved. The goal here being kind of two sides. If people come into it with preconceived notions and assumptions about how far along a given country is, we do hope to dispel myths. I'm certain that if you attend the forum, you'll hear from a country that perhaps you just assume otherwise, that they're not familiar at all with emerging aviation tech, and find that they're actually engaging in some pretty cool projects.
Yeah, true.
And so opening the eyes to a number of OEMs about how receptive certain countries are, especially those that are historically overlooked and forgotten about, to try to bring pilot programs there. As you said, Katrin, because public acceptance is so critical, I think it plainly makes more sense to launch in countries where the local population does embrace it, rather than launch in countries where maybe there's a bit of misinformation or confusion, and that public acceptance is tenuous.
Yes.
And that speaks to the other side. To the extent that we can be helpful to give OEMs a better sense of you know some of the challenges in the way of public acceptance. We would never say don't bother trying to expand operations to a given country, but of course folks within the industry are very aware of the there were grand plans to fly the Volocopter eVTOL in support of the Paris Olympics, and there was pushback, right? There
Yeah.
was a climate activist group, Extinction Rebellion, who even went as far as to vandalize the Ministry of Transportation there in France.
Yes, that's
In
true.
protest. And so you can definitely see a scenario where an OEM, they say, well, I assume that there's, opportunities and profits to be had in a city like Paris. If they hadn't done their homework and aren't familiar that it's among the city councilors, there was confusion about. In fact, I remember reading that one of the councilors was quoted saying that they had heard that these zero emission fully electric aircraft somehow produced 38 times as much greenhouse emissions as conventional helicopters.
Where was that coming from?
And exactly, but the very human nature of confirmation bias, often, and social media
Oh, yeah.
certainly plays its role in this. If you already, if you're already convinced of a certain thing, we're often attracted to, speakers and articles and information that that bolsters this belief or assumption that we already hold. And so that's really at the heart of the forum, is to try to encourage people to be open-minded. I mean, I very much love traveling, and I've been very blessed to visit a lot of different countries, but I fully recognize I don't think I've spent more than 2 weeks in any other country. And so, of course, there will always be something to learn from an individual who's living and working in that space, who understands the evolving public sentiment.
Yeah, I
And so,
couldn't agree more, because in my case, that since almost 9 years now, I'm in Romania located, in the first place, and it's Europe, and you should think, oh yeah, it's Europe, everything is kind of similar, but this is not the case. Romania is a whole different mentality, way of working. The people have different fears and concerns and perceptions, and with some stuff they are super easygoing, and with other things where we are easygoing in Germany, they are totally beholding. And so I couldn't agree more to this than you just mentioned, that this is so important that we understand globally what the people's perception of this entire topic is, and where we need to educate, especially at certain points, to take also fears away, and to grant that we're really, everyone in the industry, aerospace is one of the most safety regulated industries, that we are taking this very serious, and that we are also having a home somewhere where we maybe have a garden and we want to have our peace, freedom, and and privacy. So that this is on our screen as well, because I'm honest now. If I'm sitting in here in the garden, I don't want to have 10 of the small drones flying and taking pictures, right? I'm far away from feeling comfortable with this idea as well. So, but this is not the case, because I think this is also maybe an important point when we're talking about public acceptance, is that the people understand that those vehicles are flying way higher, and that the privacy concern is probably not so much of a biggie as they think. So
Yes, and the privacy matter. It's interesting because I recall some early efforts to advocate the use of UAS systems for incident commanders, um, and the concern that, interestingly, if a drone was en route, to a given location, to try to give a clearer picture and provide situational awareness, for example, of a wildfire, right? Which direction it seems to be heading, to what extent has it grown, and to get early warning, right, for evacuation and so forth.
right.
I've heard a fair amount of pushback about the legal implications. That, well, what if a drone were to capture on live video feed a crime in progress, like a carjacking, for example, and that there are a number of organizations that are declining to utilize these systems because they don't want to be continually dragged into court, and required to disclose, these video recordings. Personally, I feel like the trade-offs are quite clear, right? If we can help get early warning to people to evacuate their homes, and get to safety, sure, yeah, maybe it does translate to being called into court, but I just don't see the hesitation there.
Yeah, me neither. I don't understand these scenarios either, because within my private environment, I can say I have people being affected by wildfires, by floods, and by earthquakes. So, and they would have been, I think everybody would agree that they would not mind if there would have been an early warning system supporting this kind of things, right? So everybody would probably be happy, because that would have maybe meant less victims who died in those kind of scenarios, or getting injured really badly. So I personally can't understand that either, but I have told you once that even in a city where a helicopter company is located, and the people are actually earning their salary there, are signing then petitions against night flights. What can you say? This is humans, right? Because yes, there's a little bit of noise, of course, but for me, this is all ridiculous discussions, because I have mentioned it in the podcast recording, in the in an audio one, that for me personally, in my family, that occurred twice, that we needed a rescue helicopter. And I have never been more happy to see such a helicopter, because I know both times that was life-saving, and also it makes the difference of recovery outlook. The faster you get help, the better you can recover as well. So I don't understand these kind of things, because each of us can walk out of the door and get into the car having a bad car accident, and then we need those kind of vehicles. And why not to have a UAV chosen, which is maybe also cheaper in operation, right, to pick up a person and to fly it even faster than with a helicopter to a hospital. So this, now people were asking, you're coming from helicopters, why are you talking against helicopters? No, hold, hang on here a second. I'm absolutely not talking about taking helicopters away from our possibilities we are having in aerospace. What I'm saying is that the aim should be to give also the first responders the opportunity to choose which kind of vehicle is serving their operation the best. Because what people also need to understand, if a helicopter pilot flies into a wildfire, which is creating a whole different own weather scenario inside, this is dangerous for the pilot and the crew. So why not to send a drone where, okay, in the worst case, the drone comes down, but there wouldn't be people inside. And I think this is exactly what people need to understand, and we don't educate the people enough. We are discussing this up and down in the industry at every event, right? But still the question remains for a person, why would you need to have a UAV and not a helicopter here? Why would you invent another something, right? And these are the reasons. There are operations offshore, or wildfires especially, or heavy snow or whatever, right? Which is affecting also the safety of the crews. And this is also, people need to understand that sometimes a pilot need to take this hard decision. Do I keep searching, or is it getting too dangerous for my crew?
Yeah.
And then he need to take the decision as a human being. I leave that missing person probably in the closest area of a wildfire, because he need to protect the crew. And with a UAV, that scenario could look different, right? Because again, in the worst case, it's hardware, but not a human being.
Right. Well, and you raise an excellent point, Katrin. it's there does seem to be, to an extent, I wouldn't say animosity, but we do hear a fair amount from the helicopter community, pushback and casting doubt that this advanced air mobility space is even worth pursuing. But I'm very much with you. These should be seen as complementary tools.
Exactly.
Right? When I think about, for example, if your goal is to cut a steak, you certainly could use a chainsaw, right? That is technically possible. It's going to get pretty messy pretty quick and could be dangerous. At the same time, you could try to cut through a tree with a steak knife, but it would take an incredibly long time, and present its own safety risks.
Right.
And so, yes, it's about thinking about which tool is best positioned for this particular mission. And to your point, uncrewed aero systems, head to head, an individual drone, certainly they can fly under canopy, right? To the extent that,
Exactly.
Getting eyes on a missing person, that helicopters is simply unsafe to do. I personally, it's hard to say when exactly this technology will be ready. But coming from the defense sector originally, I'm particularly excited about the future of autonomous aviation,
Right.
and beyond just drones, but autonomous eVTOL systems that, as you said, can be sent into a particularly dangerous environment, and if if there's a loss, it's just money.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would love to see greater collaboration and cooperation with the helicopter community, because no question about it, really any mission that requires, a period of hover, it's no contest. Helicopters should continue. I don't see any reason to, abandon helicopters. Rescue at sea, I would never, ever, I mean, I guess never say never, but I don't know that in our lifetime we'll see eVTOLs get to the point where they could, have the capacity to be effective with rescue at sea. I mean, it takes an incredible amount of, hovering capability.
Oh yeah.
Of course, the wench to bring those survivors into the vehicle. There are loads of missions where helicopters just plainly make more sense.
Right.
So, yeah, I would like to see the communities come together because we can learn so much. They've been
Absolutely.
operating for decades and decades. So, at the same time,
And there are autonomous helicopter projects. I have seen that in US, I have seen that in Germany,
yeah,
like 15 years ago, not yesterday, like 15 years ago. So sometimes we need to be honest with ourselves here. It's maybe less about the technology readiness and more about the safety regulations and guidelines which need to be implemented, and also air traffic management, where you are also coming from with experience. I have also been working 2 years in that field. So I know this is probably the biggest challenge and not the technology as such, because that we have had flying autonomous drones and helicopters. This is technically possible. Having the safety regulations in place, and this in a global picture, that's the most challenging point I would see, actually, because what does it help if we have an FAA standard and then we have an EASA standard? From my point of view, and people maybe won't like that I'm saying that, we should have an ICAO standard from my point of view, actually, because when you look to and I will explain why. Because when you look to what happened with the Brexit, with the pilots who had a CPL in their hands from EASA, they can't fly with this in Europe anymore. It ain't possible. So that doesn't make sense for me. We are already understaffed with pilots and they are flying decades, right? Our pilots, and then we just say, okay, one country steps out of Europe, and now all the pilots can't work in Europe anymore. Who made their license in UK? This is ridiculous. And even worse, I have to say that what I learned last year is, for example, in Germany, the field, the job description pilot is not protected. So if you become, it's not counted as an educated job, actually, in Germany. So if you become unemployed, you go to the unemployment department, and that means for you there, by law, that you come as an uneducated profession.
wow.
This is like, this is, that was blowing my head, right? I heard that the first time this last November, actually, I learned that. And I was shocked, really. I was sitting in the train when a helicopter pilot from Germany, Andreas, told me about that. I couldn't even believe that crap, right? They fly rescue missions for the police, for the ADAC, for the Red Cross, for whatever. And when they become unemployed, their job description is not even recognized as a proper business education. And on top of that, they spend 150K for their freaking license, right, to serve the broad public. This is ridiculous for me. So there are some points I really want also to catch up, to pick up on that, because when we are talking about air taxis and the advanced air mobility as such, we are already wondering where we will get all the pilots in the first place from. Where from do we get them? Because we will need a lot when it comes in place, globally spoken, and what that means. And so far, I never received a proper answer. Maybe you did. I haven't. So yeah, and then we treat our pilots like that. That's just like, that's a bummer. I mean, just ridiculous for me.
Well, yes, that's certainly a necessary change.
Yeah. How is that in US, by the way? Is it the same?
I, truth be told, I'm not sure. I would similarly be floored if you know we had a similar kind of um, description.
Right.
My from what I recall, as far as I've seen lists of the which professions are most respected, and pilot consistently ranks high.
Right.
I think there's really no question about it. Many people around the world recognize the you know the complexity of skills that are necessary for a pilot. And at the end of the day, they are very directly taking responsibility for many lives.
Exactly.
And so, as society, we should definitely support pilots. I'll say that there's a really interesting kind of dynamic at play, of course, with the advent of artificial intelligence and
Oh yeah.
autonomous systems. That in a number of industries, there's real concern. People are saying, hey, like I played by the rules. Like I went to college, I got a degree, and then okay, now there's new systems that are just going to replace me. This is, this is an outrage.
What
And
is interesting, because when you look closer to all this AI technology, yes, probably some of the jobs are becoming a kind of obsolete. But on the other hand, at the same time, you create a whole huge bunch of new job opportunities here, where you, in some cases, you don't need any former knowledge to step into it. Just out of curiosity, I did this week a 5-minute course about KI, because I was interested in, right, what they are doing, what they are aiming for, and then I thought it's not that hard to understand actually. So I think a lot of people could, who are keen working from the home office, who are not so high flexible with traveling and stuff like that. I think for those kind of people, it would generate a whole new bunch of opportunities. So it is like with the computer, when people were scared that their workplaces will become obsolete, and now look what it meant. So I think that's the same situation. In the first place, we human beings have this tendency to look at the bad side of something, or the throwback, or and connect it with fear for whatever reason, instead of welcoming new technology and looking where can I take, for me as a human being, personal, where can I have the benefits out of that? And especially with AI, KI, I think there are a lot of benefits for everybody. So also in aerospace, I think, yes, even if we need less pilots because we maybe can fly autonomous one day, which we maybe should tell people that we are far away from flying autonomous regulatory wise, right? I think the next 10 to 20 years is maybe a realistic scenario about talking about autonomous flight with those vehicles, because that's what people should know in the first place. Also, we are forced as an industry by the regulators that autonomous flight is not the first option. We need to have it at least piloted from with RC piloted could be an option, but there must be a pilot somehow. So I think this is a very important information where people maybe also feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that in the first place the vehicles are still piloted in a way or another in the very beginning. So there will not be hundreds of autonomous flying drones in a very near future above their heads any soon. So I think this is a fair point to mention. And talking about generating new opportunities, let's be honest, I love that stuff, because when we are talking about presentation preparation, you're just much faster. I mean, where it took me in the past a whole day, I do that now, in like an hour. Let's be fair. In an hour, it's done. And this is such a relief, because sometimes you're thinking about the wordings and how to put that in the right way. And with AI, you just get some really fancy ideas. And this is, for me personally, I think it's very helpful. And if we are talking about the elderly people, even my father is using that. So even he is playing around, because he's curious and what is possible. And I think this is what we should tell the people. Don't be so afraid of this new technology. Yes, there are probably throwbacks in other areas with AI. That's true. But when it comes to our industry, I don't see that a lot of jobs will be obsolete just because of AI, honestly. But for training purposes, for example, AI or virtual reality is super helpful, because it's reducing the costs enormously for trainings for maintenance people or for pilots, even pre-trainings, right? So why not to implement and use it? I see no reason why to be scared and to wonder how many people will become unemployed because of that, because personally I don't see that point as a biggie.
Yes, it's it'll be a brave new world. It's an exciting future,
Yes,
and I agree. I think we'll see that many jobs will evolve, and as society, we should certainly, like you pointed out, to the extent that in the event that pilots are ousted, some point in the future, we definitely need to shore up, gaps like this, that they're not even recognized as an educated profession.
yes,
Um, Certainly, upskilling is something that government should be investing in. Giving hardworking
absolutely.
people an opportunity to, find a new employment path forward. Um, for the AM Institute, do you mind if I share a couple opportunities how people listening can get
Please do
involved?
so. This is why we are here.
Awesome. So, um, so let's see. We'll have we do recognize first responders who are making use of these technologies every April. So certainly, if there are listeners, yourself or you know of someone who's utilizing AM technology in their public safety mission, um, uh, please reach out and nominate those folks so that we can honor them. Um, Fast forward to November, a sister report honoring military veterans, individuals who served their country and are now making a meaningful impact on the AM industry. That's an opportunity to recognize them. If you are a student studying advanced air mobility research, there's a place for you in our research council. And in fact, pretty soon here we'll have we're actually going into a runoff election for the chair position. Because we had so many students, who raised their hand as candidates. So that's really exciting to see.
That's great.
And each May we host an academic symposium, and that's an opportunity, on a global virtual stage to share your thesis and dissertation findings. And of course we do our part to try to invite hiring managers and recruiters, so that you can find a role, a niche role that can leverage those skills that you've developed, and bring forward some of your novel ideas. We certainly, as this is a field of innovation, and we continue to need new, fresh ideas.
Absolutely.
And then. And I definitely want to take a moment to speak to our kind of the crown jewel of our public awareness campaign efforts this year, an event that we're calling the Pulitzer Electric Aircraft Race. This is personally very, very exciting. I'll say that in the 1920s, aviation itself was struggling with public acceptance.
Yeah.
Right. 1920, people had heard of cars but never seen one with their own eyes. Folks are still riding horses. And fun fact, in 1920, sliced bread hadn't even been invented yet.
Yeah.
Right. So,
True.
you put yourself in the shoes of someone in 1920, and to hear rumors of flying machines, it makes total sense that they say that they would reject it, and they'd say there's no way, we'd have yet another, monumental leap in transportation technology. So the National Aeronautics Association put together a plan to on an annual basis visit different communities, host this air race, and give people a chance to put their hand on the fuselage, and watch these vehicles take off and land safely, consistently, under control. And what's exciting, so October 12th, 1925 was the most recent running of the Pulitzer Trophy. And so the Advanced Air Mobility Institute, through license from the NAA, is going to be reviving this historic race.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, precisely to the day, 100 years later. And we want to invite pilot race crews from around the world. The stipulation will be will allow up to 24 participants in heats of 3 aircraft. Staggered. Safety is of the utmost importance. But so long as the aircraft in any configuration, we really want to celebrate a diversity of design. So long as it's fully electric propulsion, they'll be permitted. They do, of course, need to secure an airworthiness certificate. They don't have to be type certified by the FAA, but they do need to be airworthy. We really want to make this a family-friendly event. Races, you don't need to be an av geek to say, yeah, I'll come out and see this historic event. Races are inherently exciting. There's winners and losers and a bit of drama. And we also want to incorporate live music and food trucks and STEM educational programming. Right? We really want.
And where will it be?
Excellent question. So it will be in the United States as an American trophy. it's we're actually going to be publishing an RFP, a request for proposal, next week, so that cities can put forward a bid. Our steering committee will then, choose a variety of different considerations, and we too want to make this an annual event. So, so we highly encourage, whatever city wants to be part of this, exciting inaugural revival event. We will keep those on file, right, in future years, because we want it to rotate and reach more communities. But it's gonna be very exciting. It's a chance to show the rest of the world that because we hear terms like future air mobility, and while that might sound cool, that phrase, I think so long as we continue to call this space future air mobility, I think it kind of it implies that it's not here yet.
Yes,
Right?
that's true.
I mean, because tomorrow never comes. It's just a new today, right? We feel this is a strong opportunity to show people that electric aviation is here, and it's not just they're not just capable of flying, that they actually can compete head
Yes.
to head in a speed race. Again, I can't emphasize enough, safety will be the highest priority. But we're really trying to tap into that conventional wisdom that the NAA understood back in the 1920s. Seeing is believing.
Yes.
Right, and I think there's an argument to say, kind of bring it full circle, with our discussion about AI. Being able to witness something, in person with your own eyes, that will always be such a high mark of truth and trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
AI, there's incredible advancements with deep fake, videos, and
Yeah.
you can make a world leader appear to, say anything you want.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
I think there's, a bit of an erosion of public trust in a number of different industries. And so, yeah, we're doing our part. We want to be inclusive, and really any stakeholder in this greater, advanced air mobility space, please consider joining us. We'll announce the final location in early February.
Ah, that's awesome. So maybe I should wait for my holiday plans then, where that is, if I can afford to fly in.
Katrin, you will be a guest of honor, certainly.
I mean, this is just great. Let's be honest. Even if I have been working around next to the flight field in a helicopter company, where from my office, really, I could see them taking them off and flying, and the fly-ins and fly-outs and everything, right? Still, if I hear a helicopter or hear an aircraft or something, my eyes immediately went up. So this fascination is just like a never-ending story. I can't see it often enough, and it still does something with me if an aircraft is taking off and is landing, and even flying maneuvers, right? Where, oh, for God's sake, I don't want to sit inside because I would become sick. I had the pleasure with a friend in Philadelphia once to fly a biplane. That was just amazing. But it was weirdish, when you got the parachute, and I was like, what shall I do with that? And he was like, oh, well, in the worst case, you jump and pray. Jump, pull, and pray. And I was just like staring at him, and I just thought, but this is aviation. This is aviation. The people are just somehow relaxed, even in bumpy rides, right? When I'm flying and I am in a passenger aircraft and it's a little bit bumpy sometimes, right? I can see the fear of the people, and for me it's like, yeah, give me more, give me more. We're probably a little bit insane sometimes. But yeah, I think once you got caught up by the fascination of aviation, you are not leaving this field anymore, because there is so much technology and so many things um, to learn about. Even for me now, I just have seen a post of the Vertical Flight Society with two new kind of VTOLs from military side abbreviations. And guess what? I had to look it up because I was looking at it and I was like, come on, you're coming up with new shortcuts here again.
Yeah.
So, or also for the podcast now, I fairly spoken. I was looking up when the first flight of the Wright brothers have been taking place. It was in 1903. These are things which are so interesting when you cross-read some other stuff and you think, hey, I didn't know that, and that's so cool. Or another friend called me asking for transporting a blade of a wind turbine. And I was like, what do you mean by transporting that? Oh, can your drone probably do that? And I said, that cannot even a helicopter do. Maybe a Zeppelin could do, right? But this is because it's 100-meter length, so that there's no chance that any helicopter would take that risk. Even the weight is capable for a helicopter, but the length, this is not controllable anymore. So, see, with any question of a person, you also every single day learn something new, even if you're in our industry. With the institute, I learned a lot meanwhile, right? So there are so many new things and already existing things which you need to compare sometimes to have the real understanding where is the benefit now and where is maybe a throwback and what makes sense and what is safety proven. I think this is also a very important topic, because we are using also in advanced air mobility, we are not inventing the wheel completely new here. We are using a lot of technology, existing technology, on the market since decades, without any bad recordings, let's put it this way, or incidents. So I think if we are just brave enough and open enough, this entire sector, I think every single human being will find maybe somebody early and the other a little bit later, a personal benefit of this technology. I'm really sure about this.
Yeah.
Whether it's parcel delivery, whether it's cropping for farmers, whether it's natural disasters, let's say, okay, air taxis will be implemented one day to avoid the traffic jams on the road, that you can uplift and have another at least opportunity to do so if you want to. There is for every single person something in. And if we are talking about farmers, for example, what the most of the people don't know, farmers and tractors are already using these technologies for their fields to optimize when they water, when they harvest, when they put the seeds out, right? So this is already monitored via GPS and drones, and that have a big impact on the pricing in the end of the day. So I think these are the kind of campaigns we should have for the broader public, because it's already in place. It's not something of tomorrow or the future. It's already used technology. And I think this is especially in aerospace, maybe you need to bring the proof in operation. This is where we can prove for the broader public that stuff is working, it's safe, you don't you worry too much, you know. I mean, have your questions, but just be open-minded. And if you're having fears, reach out to the people, because they will give you an answer lovingly to make you feel comfortable. And probably we should also say here that everybody can reach out to our country liaisons in each country. The institute's website is filled with the country liaisons contact details. They can reach out to you. They can reach out to Amin, to all the directors. We are here. We have plenty of other networks who are happily answering to questions, because in the end of the day we all have the same goal. It's we want to move things forward, but, and there is the but, not just useless things for the fun of it, but bringing a real benefit for the majority of the people. That we can't satisfy everyone is clear. That ain't possible in any industry, in any topic you're talking about. But we are not just going out and doing stuff for the fun because we think we are so fancy, cool people. We do new cool stuff, and that's why we want to bring it on the market. That's not the case. The realistic cases are in 90%, I would say. I would put my hand into the fire. The people are so honest in our industry that they want to develop technology where human beings have a better environmental and safer future. And this is the mission of our whole advanced air mobility, actually. Do you want to add here something?
No. I mean, you said it very well, Katrin. And we so appreciate having you as chair of the board of liaisons. Fantastic leadership and very much embody the values that we're trying to advocate for. Our guiding principles, of course, are safety, dignity, and resilience, and really any kind of use case that's in furtherance of protecting people, protecting their rights, and protecting the systems that we rely on. That's our focus at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we are looking towards the forum, which is on 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of January, we of course want to invite everybody who is interested in getting any information from any country around our global winter forum. Just register. It's for free. There is no registration fee. Everybody can join, as then just mentioned earlier. This is also why there's no membership fee. The aim of the Institute is the broader public education of what is going on and transparency. And this is also why there is no registration fee for the forum. So, of course, feel invited, everybody, to join in, and also being able to ask more detailed questions. And as I mentioned earlier, we are all here for your questions, so don't hesitate to reach out. And also, you can approach Dan, Amin, or myself at any time to propose a topic where you probably want to hear something about it, or you want actively talk about it. We are more than happy to have a discussion with everybody.
Certainly.
Did we miss anything?
I don't think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah, we did, right? So maybe we will do a follow-up podcast after the forum and after the election, also with the successor of myself in that case, because every 6 months the chair is changing, so every country gets the opportunity at one point to contribute with a chair at the institute. And at that point, I also want to say personally thank you to you, to Amin, to everybody in the background, and of course to my vice chair, Philip Butterworth, Rose Vunja, and Manda Machanda. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correct now. Because they have done tremendous work for the forum and for the institute within the last couple of weeks, month, and I'm more than happy to have had the opportunity to work with them. And I think the next podcast with you, Dan, most definitely will be another round after the forum when we had the election. Also introducing the new chair and the new team, and I will catch up on Amin. I will see if I can get him for an interview.
Yes, he would be an excellent guest.
Absolutely. So I think we covered all. Then we say thank you for watching and listening. And thank you, Dan, for taking your time to be here today.
Of course.
And see you all very soon.
Wonderful.